Well, good evening, everyone.
But read that when you get a chance this evening.
Appreciate all of you being here. This is our regular scheduled meeting for the month of February 20th regular board meeting, and we appreciate having a good attendance and looking forward to recognizing this outstanding West Oak group in a few minutes too that have made some fantastic achievements. We're glad you're here and glad to have others here to speak to us. At the beginning of our meetings, we'd like to start with a moment of silence, and then we'll do a pledge of allegiance. And if you would join us, please, for a moment of silence. Amen. Thank you. If you'll stand and join us for the pledge. And salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we'll have Dr. Thorsland lead us with our points of celebration.
Sure. And first, I think Brandon Shirley is here with us, and he had asked to just update the school board on the 911 memorial that's going to be just off Highway 11 north of the Walhalla High property. So we added him to the agenda so he could update you guys.
Good. School board, thank you for
They
having
may
us
need you to stand at the mic just so we can, we're filming you back there and we want to be able to hear.
Make sure you get my good side.
Yeah.
Make a difference. Anyway, thank you guys for having us tonight to address it just for a few minutes. And we've got a picture. I've got a couple of pictures up here of the site where we're at with it. It looks a lot different than you've seen it the last probably 5 years that we have been working on this. But to give you a little bit of update, as you can see, we are moving dirt out there. We are very fortunate that we started out with the idea that we weren't going to do anything until we had funding, and we surely didn't want to take people's money and start moving dirt and then fall on hard times and not move forward. So we are fortunate that to say we're fully funded is probably a misstatement, but we're just a few dollars short of being completely funded. We're at a point where we feel like we can move forward with a project and see it through completion with some people that have been waiting for us to move dirt before they will do money, and that makes good sense. So we have started construction. We're looking at probably the construction timetable is about 9 weeks. However, that's 9 weeks from when we get that big hole filled in. There was a significant drop off there that we had to overcome, and we've still got about another 700 truckloads of dirt to bring into the site. We've used all the available dirt on the site, but we're very fortunate that working with the county and the rock crusher, rock quarry, they are uncovering some new rock that they've got to excavate, and they've got a whole lot of dirt that they need to do something with, and so we have been able to utilize some of that. And we also have 4 or 5 large trucking contractors in the Oconee County area that have agreed to not only pro bono a lot of this work out there, but also to haul that dirt for us. So our goal is that by the end of the summer you'll see it up, and that by 9/11 of 17 we can have a true ribbon cutting and ceremony. So
Great.
anyway, appreciate all you guys have done in the past to get us to where we're at with the land and just the support you've given us, and we'll be back in a few months to give you some more updates and pictures, and feel free to stop out there and look at it. So
Thank you.
And our second celebration tonight, I know you guys have seen emails and seen it in the press, but we were extremely proud of and excited for West Oak High School and their wrestling team. So Mr. Kreuzberger's here. I know Coach Brewer's in the back. Coach, won't you come on up? I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot here, but if you want to come up to the microphone and maybe share a couple of words. And rather than do certificates for all your wrestlers tonight, we know they have medals, state championship medals, and we thought that was a little more important. But what we would love to do is get the whole team up here with the 5 school board members, and we'd like to take a picture and put it on the front of our webpage for a period of time and tweet it out tonight. Mr. Hamby's going to get some. So we just wanted to let your guys know how proud we are of them and how much the school board is encouraged watching them and seeing them compete. But share with the school board a little bit about your season, and then maybe we'll get a pose for a picture if that's okay with you.
Thank you for having us. We've got great kids, and we've got great coaches that just train tirelessly, and they enjoy being around each other. A couple years ago we were here, and I think that group wanted to win more than anything. This group, I think, likes to just be around each other more than anything, which to me, that I'm more proud of that. I think they enjoy being around each other. They're good teammates. They're good kids. It's fun to go to practice every day. I made a comment today that today was our last Monday, and it's kind of sad because there's some great seniors that we had that have that I've watched grow up in my 3 years here. So it is certainly special for us. Our season was great. We finished 25-1, but we luckily avenged that one defeat in the state finals. So I'd rather be 25-1 than in one way than being 25-1 with gray medals. So we're excited about the gold medals that we have. So I'm happy for our team. I'm happy for our coaches. I'm happy for our community, for our schools. We want to be the best program in our district, so that's our goal. And we want to cultivate good people. We want to teach them how to wrestle. We want to teach them a little bit about life, and hopefully they'll go on and do great things and be good people for us forever. So you want me to introduce?
If you it's going to be too hard for you just to introduce them and have them come up so they have their name called on the.
No, I'm good. So we'll start with our 2 managers first. First of all, we have Lauren Crowley. I always say it wrong. So Lauren, if you would come up and be part of us. Lauren does a great job for us. Lauren does so much stuff, I guess, right up front.
Turn around, face the camera.
Lauren does so much for us that no one knows. And we couldn't do what we do without Lauren. So we're certainly thankful to have her. We also have Abby Brewer. She is a brand new manager for us. She is learning the ropes. She has to overcome a lot of parental dysfunction. So she definitely does a wonderful job. So I am more proud of her than anybody, obviously. So I'm thankful for her. Our freshmen we have on our team. First of all, we have Jordan Brown, who is a brand new wrestler. Just decided to give it a try, and he must be a lucky charm for us. So we're certainly thankful to have Jordan. So he's going to be very good soon. So we're excited for him. We have Clayton James, who is going to be another very good wrestler for us as a freshman now. We have Matthew Williams as a freshman. So we're excited about our young guys that we have. I think any other freshmen that I've missed? All right, so now we'll go to our sophomores. We have Garrett Dixon, who is an outstanding young wrestler that's going to be good for us in the future. We have Ryan Roletter. We also have Damian White. And we have Ethan Powell. So these all of our sophomores are going to be really good for us. Ethan just finished 3rd at the Upper State Championship this year, and is going to qualify for the state tournament. Now our junior class is a very, very good class. We have Tate Capps. We have Thomas Rowland. We have Jordan Lee, Lake Alexander, and then Ian James. And then lastly, our senior class. Our senior class over the last 3 years is somewhere around 80 wins and about 8 losses. Oh, I forgot Gavin. How can I forget Gavin? Look, you were sitting next to Coach Powell. I thought you were a coach, seriously. So, My bad. How can I forget Gavin? Sorry. I would have got you with the Cedars. Anyway, so our senior class is somewhere, has won around 80 to 85 matches over the last 3 years, which is phenomenal. So they are a ton of leadership, a ton of just greatness. They've bought into the things that we've tried to do as far as a team standpoint, and we wouldn't have this success without them. So first we have Zach Elliott. We also have Cameron Hamby. We have Ben Martin. What'd you say? And then we have Jared Smith and also Justin Smith. So we are certainly proud of our group. You know, two weeks ago we beat Battery Creek in the state finals, and then this past weekend we had the Upper State Individual Championships, and we qualified 11 people, which I don't think has been done since 1995. And we had 6 Upper State champions, which I don't think has ever been done at our school. So I've asked some of our wrestling historians, and no one can give me an answer. I think the most is 5 back in the mid-90s. So we're certainly excited for this weekend. Hopefully our goal now is we're going to try to win another state championship this year with our traditional, and that's our goal. So, and then hopefully we'll be able to have milkshakes and stuff after the tournament. So I think that's our final goal.
If it's not too much trouble, we'd love for y'all to get in a picture, and Mr. Hamby's going to get you organized up there. And Mr. Kreuzberg. Mr. Kreuzberg, come join.
I do want to get our coaches and recognize those. We have Russell Gray, who coaches our middle school. He lays the groundwork for all of our great stuff. And then we have Mike Powell, who coached our middle school to begin with, and now has moved up to help with our varsity.
Board members, some of y'all may have to come get on the side so we can
You all
see.
make it on the side, so. How are you? All right, Joe, I'm gonna get you a box.
Everybody step back a little bit. Yeah, Coach.
Yeah.
Been given specific directions about how to get the picture centered so it'll work on the web page, so bear with me, please.
I'm thinking of milkshake.
Everybody made it to cookout after this.
Yeah, we're doing Dairy Queen and Pendleton, so.
I was gonna say, we should get the wrestlers. They still do that? Yeah. Yeah. All right.
And if I could make one more comment just about Coach Brewer, what he just did says a lot about him as a coach, because it's not easy spur of the moment with nothing in your hand to know the guys like he knows them. That tells you what kind of coach he is too, because he's able to just spout off 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, you know. Ian's, I guess, Gavin's a little bit easy to forget there. He's so small, so I can understand that one. But, I mean, he called their names so easily, but he's done a great job with them, and we're proud of all you guys. So thanks for representing the SDOC well.
Thank you. Thank you for recognizing
Hope-
us. Good luck.
We hope you're back next year.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Good luck this weekend.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
good luck. Okay, next, we'll give them a second to clear out.
I got to sit down about pictures.
Yeah, I did too.
You're good.
Hands in the middle of the camera.
That's a better picture than last time. I forwarded to Twitter. Tweeted it out.
Next on our agenda is to approval for today's regular, no. Yes, we're approval of the agenda, for tonight. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the February 20th, 2017 regular board meeting agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Before we vote on this, so we need to amend the agenda. Last week, we talked about the bond resolution, and when we sent this agenda out in last week, we've got to include that. So officially, it wasn't on there 24 hours. So we need a motion to amend the agenda.
And just recently, the law's changed, and it's required any change to the agenda made inside of 24 hours. There needs to be a 2/3 vote of the board for that change. And there also, because this is something that would be the final action taken on it, it needs to be, as the term in the law is exigent circumstances, which the reason that exists here is we have to have your approval to proceed with a bond sale that's already scheduled. We have to work with several different groups, lawyers, financial advisors. There was no intent to hide this. Of course, bond sales are pretty routine for the school district. We talked about it last week. It was just simply an oversight that about 5 of us missed. So apologize for the mix-up, but we would like to include that bond resolution and a vote on that tonight, just so we can proceed according to the calendar that's been established for that.
So if we could get a motion to amend the agenda to add the bond sales resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I move the February, February 20th agenda be amended to include the bond resolution sale.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And all in favor of the amendment, unanimous. And then we need another motion then to approve the agenda as amended, I guess.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda for the February 20th regular board meeting with the amendment be approved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor, and again, that is unanimous, so we met the 2/3. Okay, next we have public comment.
Yes, sir, we have 2 speakers tonight. Our first speaker is Kevin Larkin. He will have 5 minutes.
I forgot my glasses. I hand scratched some notes. If I stutter, pardon me. Chairman and
Borrow mine,
Abernathy.
Kevin?
Probably not. Chairman, members of the board, Superintendent Thorsland, administrative staff, good evening. I trust the board will carefully consider the proposal of a reduction in the number of mental health counselors here in the district. You see it's on the agenda tonight and likely to be voted on as it's listed in the executive session. Last month, I recall Dr. Thorsland's words during the discussion regarding the change in school start times. He made a brief but eloquent comment regarding the surveys that went out and how he felt that many of the kids that would be most affected by these start times and the better bus rides, the shorter bus rides, might not have parents that would speak up and advocate for them. I thought that was showed a great deal of heart and compassion, and I have no doubt that Dr. Thorsland is a compassionate man anyway. But it proved it to me, as it should have proved it to anybody that was listening. I can't help but think that those students that Dr. Thorsland advocated for last month might be the same ones hurt most by the proposed reduction in force. Losing these counselors may mean that some of these students might be losing an advocate, someone who could make the difference between that student staying in school or dropping out, a difference of success or failure in a lifetime. Consider carefully if savings could not be found in the budget, in other areas of the budget, so that this school district could provide mental health counselors and provide for the physical security of its students. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Our last speaker is Dee Dee Culbertson. She will have 5 minutes.
I really don't know that it's fair to call me a speaker because I don't really feel like a speaker. First of all, board, leadership team, fellow counselors, and anyone else here that cares about our cause, I'm going to speak from the heart. I have no notes. We have all reached out to all of you, board members, leadership team, community. The one unheard group of people that's not here today are our clients. And we serve over 250. Last year we served over 300. If their parents knew that we were going to be cut, they would all be here right now. If my daughter was not on homebound, she would be here right now advocating for counseling. Therefore, it breaks my heart, as it does ours, just as parents and professionals, that our parents and our kids don't even know that we're not going to be here. And you can't compare contracting the Department of Mental Health counselors and us. It's apple and oranges, because that was one of the things when we talked about on the Healthy Kids Task Force that Dr. Swanson and I were on, and Ms. Hopkins, that kids need community. So we need to have employed counselors by the school district so we can share information. Pull-out counseling, true pull-out counseling, is when you contract another agency to come in. They come in, they put down their briefcase, they have their caseload, they see their kids, they don't communicate with anybody in the school, and they walk out. You don't know if that kid was suicidal. You don't know if that kid was cutting and they came in with open wounds that day unless that counselor so chose to tell somebody. With us being employed by the school district, and we only have one person here, and she's like just a few days away from being completely licensed. All of us are licensed counselors. From the Department of Mental Health, you may have someone right out of school with a master's degree, and they have no experience. They're learning on our kids. They may be learning on your kids one day. I'm not happy about that. We are educated. We probably have just as much education or training as a lot of your administrators do. And we continue to get educated and training because we're required to keep our licenses. These kids that we work with, we have created a bond with them. Not only do we work with these kids, we work with their principals, their teachers, their guidance counselors, sometimes some of you, sometimes Ms. Hughes, sometimes Alika Queen, our social worker, DSS, whoever we need to work with. We create a coordination of services. And that's what counseling is about, coordinating services and community for these kids so that they can learn how to manage their emotions. And that's what we deal with the most, is kids not knowing how to manage their emotions in this generation of technology where they just put it all out there on social media. All 6 of these ladies have been wonderful to work with. Last year, I know we didn't get our 80%, but we didn't start out with a full staff either. 2 of our counselors, I don't think, probably were hired until the second 9 weeks. I think we got maybe around 60% of our 60% of our salaries, but we were staggered. We made many changes. We got moved around a lot. And some of our counselors were only in one school. So we did have schools last year that weren't served at all, nothing. In fact, there's one counselor here that knows for certain her school was not served. And why? Because we didn't have enough. Even 7 is hard. I've served as the last year or 2 as the director as needed, when needed, per Medicaid, or whenever I was needed to disseminate information. I got 1 minute? Okay. Elementary school. We were told at the beginning of the school year 3 would be cut, 3 would be kept, 4 would be cut. Just last week, we were told you're all going to be cut. 4 of you can apply to mental health. That sounds very, very reminiscent of me to what was done to the teachers at the alternative school when they brought in Clemson University. And you see how that imploded. And I know how it imploded because I worked there on the back hall in the RBHS high school boys program. I saw the whole thing. And for me, it was very disheartening to watch it all happen. Elementary school kids need counseling more than anybody. Read the research. Best systems practice. Start when they're little. By the time you get to high school and they're cutting and they're suicidal and I'm having to do safety plans, we're all doing safety plans, calling everybody, putting things in order that our school district didn't even have a protocol for. We had to make a protocol for that. And we have a protocol in all our schools that we follow that goes through guidance and administrators. But had we got them when they were in elementary school, would it have made a difference? I tend to believe it would with a lot of them. So not having mental health counselors at elementary school, I don't think it's a good idea. RBTs have high school educations. They're trained in special ed services and behavior modification in a model that I'm not so sure I support. I think you should keep all the mental health counselors. I would love to help you find a way to do that. The State Department is going to put a list of more billing companies that are successfully reimbursing in a couple of weeks per D. Drayton, because PCG is not getting any reimbursement for the schools. So there are other companies that can get the reimbursement, that are actually getting the money for the schools. And I'd be happy to help with that, and I know anyone sitting here would. More than anything, we don't want to leave our kids hanging. If we have to for a couple months over the summer, fine, that's okay. But you can't, it's not apples and oranges. You're going to do a disservice to your community. We've had one shooter. How many more will we have? I've been in an elementary school where a shooter came in 1988 at Oakland Elementary in Greenwood. You have no idea what it's like. That's what made me go into counseling. That's why I'm here today. I personally know as a parent how counseling can benefit your child, how it can benefit a family. So if you cut us and you bring in contracted people and we apply for those positions, our lowest paid person here, their salary they'll be cut 10%. I don't mind telling you, my salary will be cut over $20,000. I'm sorry, the lowest paid person will be cut $10,000. So not only did we create a program, but we're getting everything cut. And we want to be here and serve our kids, and we may be serving your kids or your grandchildren one day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. The next is the approval for minutes, Exhibit 1, January 9 and January 17, school board sessions. If we get a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of January 9th work session and January 17th, 2017 regular meeting.
Second motion.
Have a motion and a second. Anybody see anything needed addressing? Hearing none, then all in favor, it's unanimous. And then for discussion items, do you want to leave this, Dr. Thorston?
I do. And first of all, I'd like to say this is not about service to students. It's not about any of the employees here. It is the reason that this recommendation was even discussed in the first place was financial. And I know it's hard to even talk finances when we are talking about services to students. But no matter what the service is in a school district, we have to talk about the finances because we are limited by the amount of money that we have in tax revenue, and as are all government agencies. So we have a classroom maximum of 26 students in kindergarten. Would we love to make that 18 and hire 10 more teachers? Absolutely, but we can't because we're limited by resources. So I just want to say this is not any situation where we're unhappy with the service, where we don't think the service is good. It's simply a financial situation. The school district hired its first mental health counselor in 2007, and that was specific to a program that we called RBHS. It was a special ed program at Seneca Middle School, and that mental health counselor worked at Seneca Middle School exclusively inside of that program. The next year, I believe it was 2008, we hired a second mental health counselor to work at that time it was Code Academy, but the alternative school. And then the following year, another counselor was hired to work at Westminster Elementary in a very similar program. So we had programs at Westminster Elementary, Seneca Middle, and one at the alternative school. And those counselors pretty much worked within those programs, didn't see the students at large. We did have kind of a task force that met just a couple of years ago, and because of Medicaid billing opportunities at the time, a decision was made to expand the program within the school district because we felt like we could get reimbursement for up to 80% of the salaries of the added mental health counseling staff. And we made an attempt to do that. A year later, the rules changed. And that's no fault of anybody's, but South Carolina chose to change the rules with the RBHS funding in mental health counseling programs in schools. And that happened probably last spring, in that ballpark. So we had just hired 4 additional staff members in the fall of 2015. I think we hired 1 or 2 in August, 1 in September, 1 in October. So we had added, more than doubled our mental health counseling staff in the fall of 2015. In the spring of 2016, not even a year later, the rules changed with Medicaid reimbursement, making it, while we hadn't operated under the new rules, we could read between the lines that the whole goal of this change was to reduce the funding that schools could get through RBHS funding, and that has held true. Matter of fact, I don't think there's a school district at this point that's gotten funding through this new program yet, because the state put an intermediary institution between the state Medicaid office and school districts. It used to be that we would just bill Medicaid, they would send funding back to the school. Now there's an MCO, which is kind of like an HMO, I guess, for individual health care, but it's an intermediate organization that school districts have to negotiate with before they can get funding from the state. And those were put into place to reduce Medicaid funding, Medicaid spending from the state side, because the state was faced with a budget crisis in Medicaid as well. So, again, the origination of this discussion and what eventually was the recommendation we discussed with you previously is that as $500,000 to the school district budget. And yes, could we find a different way to make up that money in a school district budget? Sure, we could. There are any number of things in a school district budget that could be reduced or could be added to. That's a decision we make every year. Because the mental health counseling program is relatively new, and it was greatly, it grew in the last couple of years because of the Medicaid funding. We felt like not completely cutting the program, but moving the program back to the Department of Mental Health, which is a state government office. Yeah, sure, it's not quite as perfect as maybe it is if we own our own employees, although Ms. Culbertson talked about some of the negatives with contracted mental health counselors. There are some positives as well that they're actually a little better. I understand that through the State Department of Mental Health, medication can be managed through mental health counseling, whereas we cannot do that as a district because we don't have a medical doctor employed. And then, of course, the summertime gap is a concern for us here, and it's maybe not as much of a concern through the Department of Mental Health. So pros and cons, and I'm not trying to say which argument's better. I'm just saying there are two sides to the coin, and that's why we're here. Again, it's not to reduce service or cut service. It was brought up because of a financial reason. And with many factors pushing on the budget, Ms. Moore and Mr. Hamby are concerned with balancing a budget, which is something that, you know, we're kind of obligated to do to the best of our ability. So that's kind of where we are.
Mike, if I can respond very briefly. First of all, I would just like to say thank you to the speakers this evening. We do hear what you guys say to us. Sometimes people don't believe that, but we honestly do listen and hear what you guys are saying to us. I appreciate the letters that we have received from the counselors. I've read those, and I'm trying to decipher, you know, what is best and what we need to do for the students. So we have heard your concerns, and what I want to say to you this evening in our discussions on this, I personally will carefully consider what has been said by you guys. At the same time, the administration has put a lot of effort into this, and you know, they are trying to save as much dollars as they possibly can to satisfy the school district. What we're trying to do, and at the same time, the parents, and not try to be such a burden on the taxpayers, because they ultimately are the ones that pay for the whole thing. So I just want to say thank you very much. I appreciate what you're doing. I know that it's an important thing. It's proven every day, and I will carefully consider what you have said.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron.
And just, if I could just say one more thing, the arrangement, and I did speak with one of the superintendents over the weekend that has this same arrangement in the Anderson area. And when the school district contracts with the Department of Mental Health, it's not like someone coming in and out of the building. It is an employee that the Department of Mental Health assigns to the school district that only works at one or two locations and sees multiple students consistently. So it does build that consistency. Now, is it our employee so can we completely control the situation? No, we do give up a little bit of the governance in that situation. But financially, it is, even if we were able to do 7, by contracting with the Department of Mental Health, it would be about $175,000 for 7 mental health counselors assigned to our county, if the Department of Mental Health was able to do that. Now, that's an if, and I can't guarantee that, but we haven't sought that many. If we did, it would be about $175,000, and it's over $500,000 for us. So you can see why $300 and something thousand in savings is considerable to helping meet a budget. So again.
And I appreciate where you come from on the budget. We all understand that. I think what we have works well right now, and I appreciate it, ladies, I really do. You know, this is probably my 26th budget year on this board. Been very few, if any, that we have not had to cut a budget. Every year that we have had to, everything has been on the table. We look at the entire, across the board, everything, rather than one program. You know, there's some things that I just feel is worth the money. If we only save one child, you know, $500,000 is a small price to pay, and it affects all students. That may have been the one child that would do something like a young man down at Townville. So, and we've always, I think, done our very best to when it comes to cutting the budget, to cut what affects children the least. And I think this would affect more than just those children that need the services of mental health counselors. And I agree, Dr. Thorson, there's advantages and disadvantages to both. With the Department of Mental Health, obviously the dollar figure is an advantage. From what, and we all know the Department of Mental Health has had budget woes for many, many years. They have a tremendous turnover rate. I'm afraid we will not have the continuity that we have now. And I think that's a disadvantage to the clientele that they're serving and to us too. But I just, like I say, I think what we have works well right now.
Anybody else comment? Joe? No comment? Denise? I agree with both. I mean, particularly as a former elementary principal, we don't need to miss the elementary children. I mean, that's where it starts, and so many of the problems are identifiable early on. And those students are, and I think if we could get an early start in dealing with those, I too like the consistency that we would have if we have our own people. I personally would like to see us continue as we are, but we would really like for you, for me, as counselors, and to help us with the billing. Somebody, that we don't want to have to pay the $500,000 and then have to add staff in Ms. Moore's office to take care of billing and do all of that, which just puts us in a deeper financial situation. So I would like to see that, and I like the consistency of building relationships with these kids and seeing them from year to year and being able to communicate with each other. We recently attended a conference for school board associations, and we heard that repeatedly. If the turnover is every 6 months or a year, those kids don't do as well. And I also would like for you to help us figure out a way that we don't have a 2 or 3 month lapse in the summertime. I know you're not with us, certainly not 12-month contractors, but if you went with mental health, you would be 12 months at less money. And so I don't know if we can cover that with billing or if somebody's taking care of that. It's a statewide problem, as Dr. Thorson said. And I've talked to people in Charleston area and hadn't gotten a dime yet this year from Medicaid. And, and if they weren't in an institution that had the money to keep it operating, they'd be in a real world of hurt. So it's something that we've got to overcome, and I'd like to give us time to do that and continue. So, but we appreciate what you do, and we certainly want to, we see that as a need for the services of our children and for the well-being, as much as hiring resource officers and everything else. I think we could eliminate some of those concerns maybe, and we appreciate what you do. Thank you for being up here with us tonight.
Sorry.
Okay.
I didn't know what I wanted to say. At no point in time did we ever feel you weren't doing your jobs. The letters that we received showed the magnitude of the work that you have done. And the thing is, we can't judge. We have no numbers in the sense of successes. What we have is children not acting on their emotions. And we'll never know if they had or they hadn't. I don't know if I said that well. I just want to, you have done an exceptional job. And if there is some way that we could financially find a way to offset these, in other words, this MCO, come up with another more efficient way to where we can get as much money back as possible, I think that would be a wonderful thing. Management has done an exceptional job, and that's what they're here for. They're here because they got a budget. We gave them a budget, and they got to live within it. And they have a hard time every day trying to figure out what they want to be able to do with the dollars we've given them. And it's tough. And I appreciate all the work that they have done. and looking at even things that are going to happen in years to come. They've shared that with us. But we appreciate it because I got a little 2-year-old. And
It's not his.
Grandson.
He's too old.
he is my child. I just happen to be giving him to my daughter and my son-in-law. And I want to have, if there is a need, I want to have it in-house if at all possible with the caliber of people that I'm staring at right now. And we do appreciate that. And we, I guess, in an hour or so, make that decision, okay? But I want to thank you all. That's it from me.
Well, and I want to back up what Joe said, because I know Joe is a numbers person, and I guess when I went into this initially, you know, I do wish there was some way to know, and you can't. You can't. You know, where have our successes been? Who are the children we have helped? How many children have needed this? And two, how many have been missed? Because I'm sure there's not every child that's called in elementary, middle, or high school. But again, we are here to serve all students, and it's very tough because we all know times have changed so much. I looked back when I was in school, or even when my daughter was in school, it was so simple compared to what it is now. There are just so many students, and I have somebody that I know very well whose child has benefited very much from what one of you has done with them. She's a much better student, a much happier child, and much more adjusted because she was allowed to work with someone at school. So it is tough. It is very tough. I don't want you to think, any of you to think that, as Joe said and everyone else said, we don't appreciate what you've done, because it affects our kids, and it affects a specific number of children like y'all have. So you've told us in many times in the letters that may not get it anywhere else, and we really do appreciate it, and we will give it a considerable amount of thought. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to follow up just one more time, and I'm going to be quiet now.
All right.
And this, in talking about missing children and being able to determine who needs help and who doesn't, it's a difficult thing. I know that, and you guys know that as well. I was in the business 39 years. I still haven't figured it out and never will be able to figure it out. But what you do is hit as many as you can, and that has to mean something. That has to be a big plus for us. But one of the speakers that I heard just this weekend made a statement, and it's kind of funny, but at the same time, it makes a whole lot of sense, because let's face it, folks, we'll never get everybody. We'll never be able to do that. And this No Child Left Behind law that we have been trying to function under, I have said all along, there's sort of some jokes with this thing, because, and this is what the speaker said that I thought was so funny, even Jesus said, some will be left behind. So, at some point, you'll never get them all, but you can try.
Well, I'm not ready. I'll make one more comment and we'll shut up. And this may be a question that you ladies can answer, but don't you feel that sometime in the next 6 months, they're gonna get this billing mess straightened out? I mean, with every school district across the state, that's got to, it can't go on forever. I mean, I realize we're not doing anything now, but.
I do think that they will straighten out the mess with the MCOs. Right now, there are a lot of school districts that are confused. The contract negotiations between the school districts and the MCOs have been difficult. But I still go back to my original premise. The reason that we even have MCOs is a state initiative to cut down on Medicaid expenditures. So even looking at the big picture, even when all those contract negotiations have been worked out and remedied, the states still put those in place to cut down on RBHS funding. Otherwise, if everything was going well beforehand, why would they have even put them in there to begin with? And so we're not going to be able to get the level of funding that we thought we would when we implemented the full program. Not to say we won't get any. we may be able to get some. I just don't think it will be what we anticipated when we began less than 2 years ago.
This is not just directed toward mental health, but when a child registers for school, do we as a district know if that child is on Medicaid?
We ask for that information as part of the InfoSnap
A parent,
process.
They don't have to give it.
a parent provides that information, and that can change
Yeah.
during the course of their time in the school
Well, I just
district.
want to be
but-
sure that if we're doing that, that the counselors know. In other words, are we, be
To the-
sure we're claiming every Medicaid
To the best of our
child?
ability, we can't mandate
No,
that a parent share
No.
information like that. We do ask for it, and
but if we have that information here, it's shared with the mental health folks.
absolutely,
So they know
absolutely.
to.
yes.
And we're not gonna not serve somebody
No,
because of
no.
Medicaid either. I
No,
mean, we've got
We expect
many
that.
that need it, that
Where
aren't on
there's a need.
Medicaid for sure. We wanna be sure we're serving them.
That's correct.
We basically, as a board, give the administration 2 goals to work with during the year, and one being a top 10 district in all areas, such as West Oak just did to be state, but to also be that in everything, whether it be primarily academics and do well, and we want to be a top 10. The other goal was to balance the budget and live within what we say we want to have as a fund balance and the available funds that we get through the taxes from millage assigned to us. So, and they've worked really hard on that. They do a good job with that, but that's what we've challenged them to do, and the two are tied very much together. So, what we'll do from here is, it's on the agenda to discuss in executive session, and we'll have further discussions, and then we'll, after the close of the executive session, if we take action, then we'll do that in open session and open meeting. Yeah, we've had public comment, but I'll answer your question, or Dr. Thorsland.
This process I've never been through, and that's a little bit difficult to speak and then be spoken to and not be able to respond, and I'm a
Right.
responder and a troubleshooter. Through this, I did speak to the RVHS director of Medicaid in the spring as I went to all these meetings and listened to all these phone calls. The reason why they changed to the managed care providers or organizations is because of the misuse of billing across the state to Medicaid by programs, school districts, private hospitals that were billing illegally. They were billing for too many units. So Medicaid was being robbed blind, basically. And that's why they had to change the way they were doing things and develop these managed care organizations. The other thing is, keep in mind that the State Department of Education wants us to bill Medicaid. In 2010, they wanted this implemented because they get a percentage every month. Gene Thomas has to send them a percentage of how much Medicaid we got at this school district, and not just RVHS, but all the other programs. So if all the school districts in the state aren't billing Medicaid, the State Department is missing out on a huge amount of money, which trickles down to our budget. So I'm wondering how this affects our budget now, and like the 1.6%, the 1.6 million for retirement, things like that, because they're not getting that Medicaid reimbursement anymore, because they're not getting any reimbursement at all. If we went with another billing company and waited and sorted this out and saw it through, then the State Department would in fact start getting Medicaid reimbursement again. They would get a percentage from us. So it's kind of a vicious cycle, but there is a reason.
And we'll discuss all of that as we can, and whatever decision that you'll certainly be notified immediately, and then the administration will work out those details. As I said, that's what I want us to be able to do, and we would, if we were to keep the program as is, we'd certainly expect y'all to help with that billing and being sure that we're getting reimbursed, and we'll work. We can't control so much. We have to deal with what the state gives us, and we'll deal with that. But that, and as I said, I'd love for us to work on ways to, we said we don't want to go with the mental health because of their changes, but they do see students 12 months, and if a child's got a real problem, it doesn't go away in the summer. We need to be able to figure out a way to address that as well, so. But we'll discuss that, and we'll do that, and we appreciate y'all being with us, appreciate your comments tonight. Anybody else have anything? Okay, we'll move on then to action items.
Yes. Andy has a couple.
We do, and I just wanted to update you. We talked as a group here, and then I talked with Ms. Hughes, and we did some checking about Mr. Herring's question about the proper term, guardianship, and because of the fact that we're just using ours within the district to go from school to school, our understanding is that it's not a relevant argument that somebody could say, claim one versus the other. It's not something, they can't take our document down to the highway department and say, this is what I'm using as proof that this child resides with me. Ours is for intra-district use only. So when we looked at that and with other districts and talked to them, that's how they continue to interpret it. So we didn't feel like there was a legal reason to have to change that, if that makes sense. It's just because it's just for us to use with them going from school to school inside our district.
I understand what you're saying. I was just concerned that it
And
might
it was a good
create
point.
a problem.
Yeah, and we appreciate you bringing that up, because we did check after that, and we talked to, Ms. Hughes talked to a couple of her colleagues in other districts, and that was the consensus.
So the other folks are doing it as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And again, as long as we're just using it to justify what we allow within our district, it doesn't go, it's not going to go to family court, it doesn't go to the highway department, it doesn't go to Social Security. It can't be used for any of that. It's just for our own internal use. So with that being said, we'd ask that you all, pass this on what this is first reading, and then we'd come back and finish it up in March unless you see other things that we need to look at adjusting. It's just helping us clean up a little bit of paperwork. So I put both those together as one.
That's Exhibit 2 and 3.
Correct.
Okay.
If
Well, let's
that's
do
okay.
those. Then we have a motion to approve policy JFAA E2 and JFFA E3 on first reading.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve policy JFAA-EE2 and policy JFAA-3E3 on first reading.
We have a second. Have a second, Mr. Ducat. Any other discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Then school calendar.
And yes, what we're asking for here is approval to change our school calendar to the one that's pictured on the screen right now, assuming the legislature opens that door. So that should happen in February. That's what I was told at the last superintendent's meeting. So if you would approve this revised calendar, again, contingent on the legislature opening that door to allow us to start on the 17th. The rationale for this was our original start date of the 21st is the day of the solar eclipse. That's why the legislature's considering giving us two days early to start. We would like to take advantage of that, attend those 2 days, and put a plan in place to use the solar eclipse day as an instructional day and to plan activities to teach kids about that, and it would allow us to delay the ending time of school on the 21st to compensate for the eclipse happening right at elementary dismissal time.
And those days will just come off of the other end of the calendar.
It does actually allow us to finish school before graduation, which is a good thing.
Which is good.
Obviously, we want to do that.
And we did get an update today. It's pretty much a formality that's going to pass by the end of this week with the changes to the 17th as the starting date. And a lot of districts are looking at adjusting their calendars, just like we are.
If you approve this, as soon as the legislature puts its stamp of approval on it, then Dick and Greg can help us by getting our new calendar out to the public. But you, again, would be approving this new calendar contingent on the legislature approving that exception to the third Monday rule.
And since both Dick and Greg are here, remember we discussed last week that change would have teachers come in a couple days earlier, and that we understood that there were going to be some situations that we had to work with because of plans we made. We also want our families to know that kids with perfect attendance and that they don't start until they show up. We don't unenroll them. We just don't enroll them in the school until they show up. We do that. We take attendance, we usually bring it to you guys the first day, the 5th, the 7th, and then the 10th. We have to send some of that to the State Department. So we would keep schedules and hold schedules for students who maybe had planned a vacation that week before, and if they missed Thursday, Friday, then we would start them on Monday with a 178-day year, basically.
But if we notify now some of those.
Right, make
possibly
changes.
change that.
And they could also let the schools know, well, we already had this plan, so hold our schedule, we're going to be there on Monday. And we just have to, it's just one of those things we have to work with.
Okay. Do we have a motion then to approve the adjustments to the calendar contingent on the legislature giving us that authority?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the 2017-18 school calendar with the revisions based on approval by the state legislature.
Second.
Motion second. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor? It's also unanimous. And Exhibit 5, bond resolution.
Yes, this is our annual resolution to sell our bonds, to continue with our construction projects, and to maintain our debt service millage at 31 mills, and it is a not to exceed $14,500,000.
Have any questions, comments? Joe?
What, just for the record, what construction sites will we be talking about?
West Oak High School and Walhalla Elementary.
Which is actually already started.
Yes, yes.
We're just continuing that.
and-
Just want to make certain everybody
Right,
knew that.
and it also includes some other money set aside for district maintenance and those kind of things, but the vast majority are for those two projects. In fact, we'll take a little bit from other years to cover those two projects. That won't cover those two projects, much to Ms. Moore's chagrin.
I noticed in there when they were talking about our payback in March, we're gonna pay back about 15 million, 15 something with a 31 mil payback, which is a great thing. And the 8% available funds, there's still like $1.5 million there available. We're not using the maximum that we could. Are we keeping that $1.5 million in case something happens, boilers blow up, or something major that we'd have to fund?
We, I'm assuming that you talked to Mr. Nurick. Did you talk to somebody at the meeting?
No, I mean,
No,
it's in the
document.
document.
It's in the document.
I think we could borrow more, but it
Yes.
would
You
make
could
the
borrow.
millage go up from 31. They project, there are two things that govern our borrowing for capital. You've got the 8% cap, which no district can exceed that without a referendum. But then you've also got the millage level that you want to employ. And since we've been very frank with our financial advisors and bond attorneys that we want to keep our millage at 31, then
But that's the payback millage. I mean, if some of these districts borrow money and decide to pay it back over 30 years, they don't
right.
pay it as aggressive as we are.
Right.
And
we
which
have-
I think
And
is
it costs them
good.
more in the long run.
We have an
Yeah.
aggressive payback schedule.
Right.
So
We
that
save money in there.
our buildings are typically paid off in 6, 7 years. And oftentimes, school districts borrow and pay schools back in 25 years. And it's the exact same thing as somebody borrowing for a house. If you can build a house and borrow with a 10-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage, you're gonna pay a whole lot less interest on the 10-year mortgage than you would a 30. And so far, we've been able to pay back our school construction projects very aggressively.
You see, that's where the 1.6 million,
Yeah, I do see that.
yeah. read that?
That'd be good.
We're just checking to see who read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
That's what we pay Brian for.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, then could we get a motion to approve the bond resolution not to exceed $14.5 million?
Mr. Chairman, I move the bond sale not to exceed 14.5 million be approved.
A second?
A motion and a second. All in favor? It's unanimous. Then we need a motion to go into executive session for personnel items, employment recommendations, changes, and discussion and possible action on reduction in force of mental health counselors.
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into executive session, discuss personnel items, employment recommendations and changes, as well as employee matter, reduction in force on mental health counselors.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Have a second. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Thank you. Thank y'all for being with us, and